The day my own daughter shoved papers in front of me and said, "Just sign them or get out," I realized something. Motherhood doesn't come with an expiration date. But respect apparently does. I wasn't just being asked to sign over my home. I was being asked to erase myself. James gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles had gone white. 2 acres, Maggie. Can you picture it? He kept saying, like he was trying to convince himself as much as me. Our daughter Sarah, 3 years old, slept between us on the bench seat. Everything we owned was tied down in the truck bed. $400 in cash was tucked inside my purse. Our entire future wrote on a piece of paper with an address scrawled in James's careful handwriting. 2 whole acres, he said again, his voice thick with dreams and fear. Space for that garden, room for Sarah to run, a place that's really ours. The empty lot. When we finally pulled off the main road onto a dirt track, I thought James had made a terrible mistake. There was nothing here. Nothing but sand and scrub pine and mosquitoes thick enough to choke on. "This is it?" I asked, trying to keep the disappointment out of my voice. James cut the engine, then he opened his door and stepped out, and I watched something change in his face, a kind of fierce joy. "Maggie," he called, "come here, come see what I see." The vision. I lifted Sarah out and followed him. The air smelled of pine resin and wild jasmine. "Stand here," James said, positioning me. "Now look." At first I saw only trees and sky, but then James began to talk, and I began to see what he saw. The house will go right there, single story, front porch facing east to catch the morning sun, wide enough for a swing, big kitchen window so you can see who's coming up the drive. His voice grew stronger, more confident, and suddenly I could see it too. The home we would build with our own hands. Sarah woke up and toddled around, picking up pine cones. She stopped and tugged on James's pants leg. "Daddy, where's my room gonna be?" James scooped her up and spun her around. "Right there, princess. Right there where that big pine tree is standing guard. You'll have your own window. Can I have a pink room, Daddy? Pink like the flowers Mama showed me?" "You can have whatever color room you want, sweetheart. Pink or purple or yellow like sunshine." First night. That first night, we slept in the truck bed under a tarp. Sarah slept between us on a pile of old blankets. I lay awake listening to the Florida night, owls calling, cicadas singing, the distant splash of water. The stars were brighter here. "You sure about this?" I whispered to James. He was quiet for a long time. Then he reached over and found my hand in the darkness. "I've never been sure of anything in my life, Maggie Rose, but I'm sure of this, I'm sure of us. I'm sure that whatever we build here, we'll build it together. That's enough. That's more than enough." The trailer. We bought a rusted-out Airstream for $200 and parked it on our land. For 3 years we lived in that tiny space, while James worked construction jobs during the day and worked on our house at night and on weekends. The trailer was cramped and hot in summer, cold in winter, but it was ours sitting on our land. Every morning I looked out the small window and saw the frame of our future home rising board by board. My diner job. I got a job at Mel's Diner serving coffee and pie to truckers. It was hard work. My feet ached so bad I had to soak them in cold water, but it was steady money. Every dollar went toward lumber and nails. The truckers were mostly decent men, far from their own families. One Roberto noticed the sawdust on my apron one day. "You building house?" he asked. "My husband is building it," I told him, "board by board, nail by nail." Roberto nodded solemnly. "This is good thing. Man who builds house for his family, this man loves with his hands, not just his heart." Sarah starts school. Sarah started kindergarten, riding the big yellow school bus. She was the only kid from a trailer, but she didn't mind. She came home every afternoon bursting with stories. Her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, sent home notes. "She has the mind of an engineer," she wrote, "or maybe an architect. She's always drawing pictures of houses." Building together. Those 3 years were the hardest and the best of our marriage. Building your own home strips life down to its essentials. James worked dawn to dusk on other people's houses, then came home and worked on ours until dark. I helped where I could, holding boards, painting, making trips to the hardware store. I learned to use a paintbrush properly, how to cut clean lines, how to sand wood until it was smooth. I learned the difference between a Phillips head and a flathead, between studs that are 16 inches on center and those that are 24. Every board James nailed in place was an act of love. Not just love for me and Sarah, but love for the future we were creating. Moving day. The day we moved into the finished house was one of the happiest of my life. It was November 15th, 1978, and the morning was crisp and clear. We didn't have much furniture, but we had our own roof and our own walls and our own front door key, warm and solid in my palm. James carried me over the threshold. "Fresh start, Maggie Rose," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Fresh start in our own place, with our own dreams built right into the walls." Sarah ran from room to room, her footsteps echoing. "This is my room. This is where we eat dinner. Mama, we have our own house now, a real house." First night in our house. That first night, we ate takeout pizza sitting on the living room floor. Sarah fell asleep, curled against James's side. I looked around at the room my husband built, at the walls he framed, the windows he installed, and I thought I had never been happier or more grateful. "We did it," I whispered. He smiled and pulled me closer. "We're just getting started, Maggie Rose. This house is just the beginning." The blue shutters. The second summer, James decided the shutters needed painting. We were on the front porch watching the sunset when he asked what color. "Blue," I said without thinking. "Blue like the ocean, so every morning I'll be reminded we live in paradise." So James painted the shutters ocean blue, that soft, weathered blue of sea glass. My garden. I started my garden that second year, beginning with vegetables. But gradually I added flowers, marigolds, petunias, jasmine, and hibiscus, red hibiscus that bloomed like small suns. "Why hibiscus?" James asked one day. "Because they're tropical," I told him. "They belong here, just like we belong here." He laughed and kissed my head. "I love watching you bloom here, Maggie. I love seeing you put down roots." The golden years. Over the next 25 years, that house became the center of our universe. We added a back porch. The house was filled with the sound of young voices and the chaos of teenagers. Sarah's friends were always underfoot. Friday nights were for football games, Saturday mornings for pancakes, Sunday afternoons for family projects. James loved these Sundays. He put on his oldest clothes and spent hours puttering. "Honey, that fence is fine," I'd say. "It's fine now," he'd answer, "but come next hurricane season it won't be. Better to fix things before they break." That was James's philosophy. Fix it before it breaks. Plan ahead. Take care of what's yours, and it'll take care of you. Sarah grows up. Sarah grew up smart, destined for things beyond our small town. "I'm going to college," she announced at 14. "Of course you are," James said. "We've been saving for it since you were born." Every month, James took what we could spare and put it in an envelope marked Sarah's College Fund. Some months it got fuller, some months we had to borrow, but we managed. High school graduation. Sarah graduated valedictorian. James cried during the ceremony. "That's our daughter," he whispered, choked with emotion. "That's our girl. She's going to change the world." Afterward, we went to dinner. Sarah ordered wine. I'm 18, she told the waiter. I can vote and serve my country. I think I can handle a glass of wine. College bound. That fall, Sarah left for the University of Florida with every penny we'd saved. She was going to study business administration. Business is where the real money is, she said. I never want to struggle like you did. There's nothing wrong with struggling, I told her. Your daddy and I have been happy. I know, Mama, she said, but there was an edge in her voice. But I want more than happy. I want security. College changes her. College changed Sarah. She came home talking about economics and building wealth. She wore expensive clothes. I'm learning how the real world works, she'd say. The implication was that we didn't know. It stung, but I figured she'd grow out of it. The tuition crisis. During Sarah's junior year, the tuition bills grew faster than we'd expected. James picked up extra jobs, working until exhausted. I took more hours at the diner and started sewing again, but it wasn't enough. My wedding ring. The night I pawned my wedding ring to make a tuition payment, I cried harder than I had since my mother died. The ring had been on my finger for 23 years. James found me staring at my bare hand. He took it and kissed where the band used to sit. That ring was just a symbol of our love. Sarah is our love made real. We never got the ring back. Success and marriage. Sarah graduated summa cum laude and got a job in Tampa. She married Tom at the courthouse. It's more practical, she said when I suggested getting married at home. Practical, convenient. These were her words now. Grandchildren. They had 2 children, Emma and Michael. For a while it seemed like having kids might soften Sarah's edges. She brought them to visit, and for a moment watching them play in the yard, she looked like the little girl I knew. But then she'd check her watch. We have to go. The drive is long. Emma loved the garden. Why are they called hibiscus, Grandma? Because that's their name, sweetheart. But who decided? I don't know, but I know why I planted them. They belong here just like we do. Michael was like James, quiet, happiest working with his hands. James taught him to use tools. He's got good hands, James told me. He could build things. Maybe he'll be a carpenter like his grandpa. James smiled sadly. Sarah won't let him. She'll want him to go to college, make something of himself. The implication hung in the air. James's heart attack. James was 57 when he had his heart attack. The call came at 2:17 on a Tuesday. Mrs. Thompson, your husband collapsed. He suffered a massive heart attack. I don't remember the drive to the hospital. Sarah was already there. Mama, he's hurt bad. James was unconscious, surrounded by machines. I took his hand. James, I'm here. We're both here. But he never woke up. He died that evening. The funeral. The church was packed with people we'd known for 30 years. The preacher talked about James as a man of faith and integrity. But it didn't capture who he was to me. After the funeral, people came to the house. Sarah stayed with me for 2 weeks, helping sort through things. Are you sure you want to stay here, Mama? She asked. This house is awfully big for one person. It's my home. All our memories are here. But practically speaking, it doesn't make sense. The taxes, the maintenance. You could start over somewhere smaller. I don't want to start over. I want to stay where we were happy. Learning solitude. The first year was the hardest. Everything reminded me of him. Some mornings I forgot and turned over expecting to see him. But gradually I learned to live with the silence. I learned to cook for one. I learned to fall asleep to the sound of my own breathing. Slowly, I found peace in the solitude. I could spend all day in the garden. I could eat on the porch without making conversation. Regular visits. Sarah visited regularly. The kids loved the space. Emma spent hours in the garden with me. Michael followed me around, chattering. "Grandma," Emma asked one day, "why do you live in such a big house all by yourself?" "Because it's my home. This is where I belong." "But don't you get lonely?" "Sometimes I get lonely for Grandpa. But lonely and alone aren't the same. I'm alone, but not lonely, because everything here is full of love and memories." Growing challenges. For 15 years it worked. I maintained the house, hiring handymen for big jobs. I tended my garden, though arthritis made it harder. But as I got older, challenges grew. Taxes rose. The house needed constant repairs. Sarah began to notice. Her visits took on a different tone. She made mental lists of things that needed fixing. "Mama, that roof needs new shingles. The electrical is 40 years old. That's not safe." "It works fine. Your daddy updated it." "That was 20 years ago. What if there's a fire?" Changing conversations. Conversations about my situation became more frequent. She called every Sunday, grilling me about bills and maintenance. "I'm not a child, Sarah." "I know, but you're not 25. I'm just trying to help." But her help felt like supervision. She reorganized my kitchen. She went through my mail. She suggested a cleaning service. "You're being stubborn." "I'm being independent. There's a difference." The ladder fall. When I was 72, I fell off a stepladder changing a light bulb. It was minor, a bruised hip, a scraped elbow. I didn't mention it. But a neighbor saw the ambulance and told her daughter, and the story reached Sarah, exaggerated. She drove down that evening. "Mama, are you okay? I heard you fell." It was nothing. People fall. Nothing? At your age, you could have been killed. Accidents happen. It doesn't mean I'm incompetent. But what if you'd been seriously hurt? You could have been lying there for days. The pressure campaign. Sarah's suggestions became more insistent. She wanted me to wear a medical alert button. She wanted phones in every room. She wanted a daily caregiver. These are reasonable precautions, but they felt like giving up independence. The alert button sat in a drawer. Power of attorney. Sarah started handling more of my finances to help. She convinced me to give her power of attorney. "It's just a precaution. It doesn't mean I'll interfere." It seemed reasonable. She was good with money. Financial manipulation. But I noticed decisions made without my consent. Accounts were consolidated. Investments were transferred. Bills were paid from new accounts. "I'm just streamlining things," she said, "so you don't have to worry." But it felt like losing control. The house transfer. She first brought up transferring the house deed during a phone call. "It's your biggest asset. If something happens, it'll have to go through probate. There are tax advantages to transferring it now." "I'll think about it." But she didn't let it drop. She brought it up repeatedly with new arguments. Property values are going up. Insurance costs are ridiculous. An estate attorney says it's the best option. Each conversation left me more confused and pressured, wearing me down. I didn't want to think about estate planning. I wanted to live my life. But Sarah called when I was tired, lecturing me until my head spun. "Mama, you're letting emotion cloud your judgment." "It's my house. I don't want to give it away." "You're not giving it away. You're transferring it for safekeeping. You'd still live there. The only difference is the deed would be in my name." "But what if we disagree? What if you want to sell?" "Why would I? You're thinking of scenarios that won't happen." The final confrontation. The pressure continued for months. Then, one Tuesday morning, Sarah arrived unannounced with a thick folder. "We need to talk. About the house." She opened the folder on the kitchen table. "Legal documents. I've had the paperwork drawn up. It's all here, ready for you to sign." "I never agreed to this." "You don't have to agree. You just have to do it. It's the right thing." Her tone was cold. An ultimatum. What if I don't want to sign? Then you're being selfish. You're putting everyone in a difficult position. Who? Me, Tom, the kids. We'll have to deal with the mess if something happens. Sarah, this house is my home. I can't just sign it away. But it's not practical for you to keep it. You're 73. You have arthritis, high blood pressure. You fell off a ladder. What happens when you can't maintain it? What happens when you can't live here safely? Then I'll deal with it then. I won't give up my home because you're afraid of what might happen. This isn't about fear. It's about reality. You can't handle this place anymore. Says who? I've managed for 30 years since your father died. Because you're old, she exploded. You're old and stubborn and you refuse to face facts. I stared at her. I may be old, but I'm not dead, and I'm not incompetent. Aren't you? You forgot to pay your insurance. You hired that boy instead of my contractor. You refused the alert button. You're living in a house that's too big and too expensive. The insurance was late because I was in the hospital. I hired Jimmy because he needed the work. I don't need an alert button. You don't think you need one. There's a difference. I stood up. I think you should leave. Not until you sign these papers. Then you'll be here a long time, because I'm not signing. She stared at me, cold and calculating. Mama, I've talked to Tom and an attorney. If you won't do this voluntarily, there are other options. What options? Legal options. Ways to have you declared incompetent. My own daughter threatened to have me declared mentally incompetent. You would do that? I would do whatever it takes to protect you, even if you're too stubborn to protect yourself. This isn't about protecting me. It's about controlling me. She pushed the papers toward me. Just sign them. Don't make this harder. And if I don't? Her voice was quiet, steely. Then you'll have to find somewhere else to live. Get out. The silence was deafening. Get out. Mama, get out of my house. She gathered the papers angrily. You're making a mistake. When you realize you can't do this on your own, don't expect me to come running. The door slammed. I was alone. The lawyer. I sat for hours. That evening, I called an elder law attorney, Janet Crawford. I told her what happened. Mrs. Thompson, what your daughter is doing is elder abuse, financial exploitation, and emotional abuse. But she says she's trying to help. Many abusers convince themselves they're acting in the victim's best interests, but pressuring you to sign over your property and threatening homelessness is illegal. We went over my situation. Janet explained my rights. Financial discovery. What we found was chilling. Sarah hadn't just been helping. She'd been systematically positioning herself to take control. She'd moved money to accounts requiring her signature, changed investments without my consent, taken out a home equity loan against my house I never agreed to. Mrs. Thompson, Janet said gently, your daughter has been planning this for some time. This is a systematic campaign to gain control of your assets. The betrayal was deep. Changed locks. I changed the locks the next day. It felt like reclaiming my home. 2 days later, Sarah tried her key. It didn't work. She knocked sharply. Mama, open this door. What's wrong with my key? I opened the door but didn't let her in. I changed them. You changed the locks on your own house? It's my house. If you want to visit as my daughter, you're welcome to knock. If you're here to threaten me, you can stay there. Can I please come in? We need to talk. I let her in. The apology. Mama, I owe you an apology, she said, sitting on the couch. I've been handling this wrong. Which part? Threatening to have me declared incompetent or telling me to find somewhere else to live? She flinched. All of it. I was scared. I watched Tom's mother go through chaos with dementia. I didn't want that for you. So you treated me like I already had it? Yes, I guess I was. We talked for 3 hours. Sarah told me about her fears, of losing control, of disaster striking. I told her about my fears, of losing independence, of being a burden. I don't want to take you home, she said finally. I just want you safe. I am safe. If the day comes when I'm not, we'll figure it out together. Not you for me. Us together. Resolution. It wasn't perfect. There were still hurt feelings. But we worked with Janet to untangle the finances. We revoked the loan, restored my control, established boundaries. Sarah apologized for the manipulation, too. I convinced myself I was protecting you, but I never asked what you wanted to be protected from. I want to be protected from losing myself, from becoming someone else's version of me. I understand now. I'm sorry it took so long. 3 years later. I'm 76 now. Some things are harder. I need more help. But I'm still here, in the house James built, making my own decisions. Sarah visits with the grandchildren. We make cookies, tell stories, sit on the porch swing. The house has been updated. The hibiscus are enormous, blooming magnificently. Every morning I make tea and look at those red blooms and remember James calling, "Maggie Rose, I'm home." The lesson. People ask if I get lonely, if I regret not moving. But loneliness is about disconnection, and I've never been more connected to my life than here. That day, Sarah pushed those papers at me. It would have been easy to give in, but I'm grateful I didn't, because standing up for myself taught me the difference between growing older and giving up. The message. Your story is yours to write, no matter how old you are. Don't hand over your pen just because someone thinks it's time. Keep writing, keep choosing, keep living your own life. When you stop making your own choices, when you let fear or convenience or others' ideas determine how you live, that's when you really become old. That's when you really start dying. Welcome home. The hibiscus are blooming again. If James were here, he'd smile at this house we built and call out, "Maggie Rose, I'm home." And I call back to the memories, to the love that built this home. Welcome home, James Thompson. Welcome home.